Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Cheats Movement podcast. This is the Who's Got Next series as we are interviewing the candidates for mayor. Today, I have the honor to be joined by the current mayor running for re-election, Mayor Levar Stoney. Mayor Stoney, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Mark. Thanks for having me, brother.
Look, people know this is not new to us. You've been on the show plenty of times. I appreciate your time. We have about give or take 30 minutes, and so most of these questions are coming from the audience. And as always, I'm going to put my own cheats movement spin on them, and you'll be able to answer. I'm not going to cut you off. You're going to be able to answer as complete and thorough as possible. So I just want to jump right in, if that's okay with you.
Sure, let's do it.
You are the only candidate in this race that has been mayor. Let's just be frank. You're the only candidate in this race that has been mayor for the last 4 years. Based on the last 4 years, first question, and I'm not even being facetious. First question, why do you want a second term? And it's a two-part question. Why do you want to do it again? And then the second part is, why should voters give you a second term?
Well, I want to do it again because the work is still not complete. I am proud of my record, Mark, over the course of the last 4 years, whether it's building 3 new schools in Black and brown neighborhoods, putting more money into Richmond public schools like I said I would do 4 years ago during that campaign, $30 million in new money for Richmond public schools that's been able to allow us to raise teacher salaries, more nurses, put more guidance counselors into schools, more advanced placement courses, also fix leaky roofs and remediate mold. I'm proud of the fact we expanded after school programs. Every elementary schooler, every middle schooler has access to an after school program. The dollars we put into Affordable Housing Trust Fund, tripling that, being a part of building 1,900 new affordable housing units in the city over the course of the last 3 years. I'm proud of that record, and the eviction diversion program, the first of its kind in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm proud of that record. But here's what I know. My record is not an end to our problems. It's the beginning to our solutions. And so we have not solved all these problems yet. In the next 4 years, I think, are the most critical years. Heck, the next decade is the most critical decade we've seen probably since the civil rights movement. I put it up there next to Reconstruction, the civil rights movement, and now what's going to happen post the racial reckoning we had here in 2020. And that is why you need experienced leadership with someone who is the right temperament for the job to lead us through these most difficult times.
You touched on a lot of things there, and I want to touch on a lot of them specifically. And let's just be frank. This summer has produced challenges that I don't think any politician, mayor, elected official, or person could see coming, right? COVID-19 was something that everyday citizens, along with elected officials, we've had obviously conflict between the RPD and community demonstrators. We've had an economic downturn based off of a lot of the COVID stuff. Our children, my 6-year-old son is right beside me in virtual school as we speak. There's been a lot going on. There's been a lot going on. And I want to be fair because, like I said, I don't think human beings and kind of elected officials were prepared for all of this. But let's start with education. You'd mentioned, record investment in funding. You mentioned the 3 building of new schools. You didn't mention, which I just read, the announcement about George Wythe. And, I believe they're scheduled now for a complete renovation based off of some of this stuff. One thing that people have spoken to me about is that you seem to have a strong partner in this current superintendent, Jason Camrus. RPS is one of the only school districts I'm aware of that has 2 former National Teachers of the Year in our leadership. So with that, let's talk about what I've been hearing too. Infrastructure still needs to be improved in a lot of areas in our schools. Test scores going down, attendance rates going down. A major concern about, especially in some of our younger students, kind of the relationship between arrest, like expulsions and kind of arrest and for some of our middle school students. So there's a lot that I'm hearing all around about education. I know the good stuff that you touted. Talk to me about how we can improve our test scores. How can we improve some of our dilapidated buildings? How can we improve our end product result with our children? And what needs
Well,
to
the
be
number
done?
one thing you have Well, the number one thing you have to do to ensure that we actually can improve, right? The key word is improve right there, is you have to continue with the leadership that you have today. The issue with Richmond Public Schools over the course of the last 30 plus years has been we've had 17 superintendents of Richmond Public Schools for the last 32 years. 17 different superintendents. Now, you're a watcher of sports.
Sure.
You know the New York Knicks have had how many different coaches over the course of the last 20 years?
A lot.
How many different coaches?
Oh, I
Right?
can't tell you
And
that.
so is that a winning franchise? Yeah. Is that a winning franchise? No. So
Let's stay
you
focused.
have to you have to continue with the leadership that you have, stay focused, and let Mr. Cameras fulfill the promises that are being made in the Dreams for RPS strategic plan. And that means put the onus back on the elected officials, me, and also the city council to fund the plan. And I'm proud that we've been funding that plan. We found the dollars to do so, but we have to continue to do that. We got to get the right teachers in the right places, the dollars to match that as well. We got a lot of plans all the time, but we never follow through on our plans. I think the number one the worst thing we can do is change leadership right now in this most critical time.
Follow up even more though, because I mean, tangibly, and I don't know as much about the plan as I should, but does that mean more teachers, more kind of peer-to-peer instruction? Like, what can we do, one, to make sure that our test scores for our children are going up, and then what can we ensure? Again, the other thing that really throws me off is, a lot of kids face a lot of challenges, but we want to make sure that our kids are in school. So how do we get our test scores up? How do we get our kids in the building?
Well, here's the thing. I understand test scores, accreditation, it's very, very important. That's what people follow when they're moving into a neighborhood or to a community. How's my school doing on the SLOs and whatnot? But the reason why I've graded Jason Cameras the way I did during that debate was because I think that we should be grading and judging our students, and we should judge the leadership and our teachers the same way. And that is, we should be judging our students and grading them on the growth they've made. Right? So for instance, if you're a fifth grader, but you're reading at a second grade reading level, and your teacher is able to get you from a second grade reading level to a fifth grade reading level by the time you enter sixth grade, we should applaud and recognize that teacher for the growth and also applaud the student for what he's done. And that's exactly what I've seen in Jason Cameras in his role, is moving the RPS from where they were to a different level. That's growth. And here's the thing. I know there are a number of opponents of mine who try to highlight the fact that we've had a declining graduation rate. The reason we have a declining graduation rate, Mark, is because we are no longer rubber stamping graduations, rubber stamping diplomas. And that's exactly what they were doing in the previous administration. That means we had young people graduating from RPS with a piece of paper of no value to compete in the 21st century economy.
Okay. No.
And I know folks don't like to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Folks don't like to hear that, but it's the truth.
So, and you've made it clear. What do you think in regards to your support of Superintendent Cameras and the direction? So you feel positive about the direction that RPS is going. What needs to happen now to turn the corner with RPS? Because again, like I said, we're sticking to if you're reelected, we stick to this plan. What needs to happen, and when do you start to think that we start to have even more confidence back in the system?
Well, I guess the one thing that is holding everybody in place right now is that we have to learn from our homes at the moment, right? And I know that Chesterfield and Hanover County have begun, even Henrico County, begun to phase back the reopening process, right? But I truly believe until we have a vaccine and a therapy, that we cannot put our students, our teachers, staff at risk. And I fully believe in that, because this virus is serious, and the virus has had a disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities. And what's the population of Richmond Public Schools? Black and brown people, Black and brown kids. And so we have to be very, very careful and cautious. I know the school board is going to take this up in December and make a decision for whether or not we return in February. But I always say safety first. My job is to ensure that the safety and the health and the well-being of my residents is protected. And that's exactly what I'm going to do over the course of the next 4 years. So we have to take that slow. But the question I get all the time is, are our kids learning? Our kids are learning. Could they be learning better in a different environment? Heck yeah, they could be learning better in a different environment. But we all, as you said earlier at the top of this, Mark, there's no playbook for this. We've never done this before, right? We've never been in virtual learning before. So we have to do our best to, we're never going to perfect it, but we need to make sure that our kids have everything that they need their families to survive a pandemic as well.
You mentioned public safety first,
and can I say real quick?
This ain't a debate. I'm not gonna mute you.
Can I say real quick? Mark, can I say this as well? RPS would not have the equipment and the devices to learn virtually if we did not fully fund RPS. If we did not put the dollars that I talk about, that historic investment in Richmond Public Schools, people missed it. So when my opponents say RPS could do, they should be able to do more with less, I say, hell no. They need to do more with more, not more with less.
That's a good point. Do you think RPS needs more funding at this point right now? Do you think RPS needs more funding?
Yes. They need more funding. They've been underfunded for years. They've been underfunded by the state government as well, as we all know that. And I don't see us fixing the formula anytime on the horizon, the LCI. But do they need more funding? Yes, and that's why I came out early on, recently, I guess, in support of using legalization of marijuana to invest in the at-risk add-on, so we can put more dollars into schools like RPS, where we see a disproportionate amount of those students who are facing the challenges of poverty.
Last question on this. One of your opponents on their one-on-one Who's Got Next interview said that we need to close and consolidate some schools in RPS. Do you think that we need to close and consolidate some schools in RPS?
I think that's a decision for the school board to make. As a person who's been mayor for the last 4 years, I know what happens when you try to step on the school board's step on their turf. Here's the thing. I think we need new schools in RPS, renovated schools in RPS, and we should get our kids from these old schools as quickly as possible into new schools. That's what I think we need.
You mentioned public safety and putting public safety first. You have taken a hit from some of the business community in Richmond because you tend to, I believe, and I actually I've written a profile about you. In the profile, I gave you high marks on this because I tend to believe public safety just has to come first in a situation that we don't know long-term effects of COVID cases. We just don't know so much about COVID-19. But you have taken hits from the business community about shutting kind of Richmond down and not opening up faster than some of your regional counterparts. And kind of the notice that business, one of the criticisms I heard was, well, we just needed more time to know. Looking back on this in regards to moving forward, what can we do to support our small, medium-sized, low, what can we do to support the business community in the face of COVID? And is it a fair criticism to say they didn't get enough notice in regards to what was happening over the summer?
First, I would do it again, right? If I see rising case counts, rising positivity rates, and we have to actually downgrade from phase 3, to which we're in today, to phase 2, I would not hesitate to ask the governor to do so, because we have to be focused on public safety. And that is the number one responsibility of the mayor, the chief executive officer of this municipal government. Now, let's go back to previously into June. What we did was we did our homework and we said, I'm sorry, Governor, what the numbers that you're looking at aren't adding up for us here locally. And so we sent the governor a letter waiting for his response, because remember, I cannot be the one who actually downgrades or slows anything down. I have to ask the governor for permission to do so. Why? This is a Dillon rule state, right? The granddaddy of all preemption laws. I had to ask the governor and wait for the governor's response. And once I got the governor's response, I then told the public that we were not going into phase I forget what phase it was at the time, but we were not going to be opening like every other locality in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And you know what? I look back at it and we did the right thing. Why? We had 35 straight days of a lower case counts, a positive case counts in the city of Richmond. We had 35 straight days of low positivity rates as well. We would not have gotten there, I believe, if we would have just blew through the reopening process like some other localities did. So we did the right thing. And I'm always going to listen to the scientists, the medical experts before making any of these decisions. This can't be a gut decision where people's lives are on the line. At the end of the day, Mark, if we know that certain practices will save lives, why wouldn't we do it? Why wouldn't we do it? So that's exactly what I did, and I do it again.
Move to the next part of that. I understand, but how do we support businesses and in the face of this COVID-19, where again the numbers seem to fluctuate just daily? Record numbers are happening as we speak in different localities. These businesses are losing money. They're not paying, they're getting some relief from the federal government, not as much as they'd like. Some, rent is due. How do we support them moving forward?
Yeah. I've done my best to be as creative as possible about how we go about using our CARES Act dollars. I put emphasis on caring for our families and also caring for those individuals who are facing, who are on the brink because of COVID-19 and the loss of salaries and the loss of wages. But also put some emphasis on our business as well. We put $3 million out there into the marketplace in terms of small business loans and also the Richmond Recovery Grant. And the small business loans that we actually issued earlier in the process, we allowed for folks to actually revert those to grants and not have to pay them back if that's beneficial to them. And now we've done the Richmond Recovers Grant too. I'm very proud of it. We also stood up the First Responders Meals Program as well, where restaurants were able to stay open because we were buying meals for our first responders as well. And we expanded access or expanded sidewalk access for our restaurants so they can expand their seating outside too. Now, moving forward, we have to continue to be creative about how we help our restaurants on whether it's more seating outside or how they are able to use heaters or things of that nature to continue outdoor dining. We are going to continue to do everything we can to make it easier. If we need more tax amnesty, as we did earlier, we're going to look at that as well. I think right now the key word is help. How can we help? And we can't do this all by ourselves, though. Like I said earlier, in the past, I've said local governments are not built or are equipped to handle 100-year plagues. This is something that the federal government is built and should be equipped to do. However, what we've done, we've seen a failure from Donald Trump with no plan, no not even following through with the plans he did have, and no relief. We've only seen one relief package, but if this was 10, 12 years ago, they were bailing out corporations, just like this. It's time for the federal government to provide even more relief for local governments so we can get those dollars to the small businesses in our city, because they are the backbone, the front bone, and the middle bone of the Richmond economy.
Let me ask this, because you mentioned the building of 3 new schools. We got those 3 new schools, or the funding for those new schools, based off a meals tax increase, right? I have heard that has put you at odds with a lot of the restaurant industry. And in turn, this is an interesting part of this, and I want to get your full answer on it, because I've in turn heard that you have basically adversarial, or even adversarial at best, even hostile relationship with some of the restaurants that oppose the meals tax. Talk to me about your relationship with Richmond's restaurant industry. Is there bad feelings that have kind of lingered through the meals tax debate, and how are you working to kind of bridge those gaps, if there is any? I mean, this is all coming from the audience, but I do want to ask, because I want to say I feel like this is an interesting dynamic.
Mark, there is a diversity of opinion within the restaurant world and scene, just like there's a diversity of opinion within the city of Richmond. Not everybody is going to agree with the decisions that I make, but I make them because I believe they're good for they're the best for the greater good of our city. And so, are there folks who are upset? I'm sure there are people who are upset. Are the folks who are appreciative of what we did, using those mills tax dollars to actually build and leverage $150 million to build 3 new schools in areas of the city that long needed? Yes, there are. So there's a diversity of opinion throughout the restaurant industry, and there are some who are upset, and there are some who are happy to see that we have new schools in Black and brown communities in this city.
And I understand that, and I want to be just very clear, and I think I know the answer to this, and it might sound like a silly question, but I do want to. You don't hold any ill. Do you hold ill will to the kind of the people that were working against that meals tax? I mean, as your administration,
No,
has there been anything that you would say is like, well, we had to work through some things, or you feel like everything is moving in the right direction on it?
Here's the thing. Let's not be silly here, Mark. I know who the opponents are. They were quite vocal.
Sure.
And I dine in some of their restaurants today. And so I have no ill will. I'm here to do a job. They're here to do a job as well. My job is to focus on our children and find the revenue to make sure that they actually get whatever they need to be successful in the city. Here's the thing. I can't guarantee all 237,000 people in the city
Right.
are going to be successful or are going to be happy. But what I can do is remove the barriers and the obstacles for that success. And this was one barrier that we removed. But when you're the mayor, it's like pulling levers. You help people over here, you're going to make someone upset over there. It's my hope that we all can come together for the greater good. Once again, moving forward, ensuring that we not only have a strong restaurant scene, but also that our kids also have the strength as well to be successful in the city.
Let's talk about, so you know this. I wrote profiles on all the top leading candidates. I have heard. I will be 100% transparent with you. I heard more about the Stoney profile than I did about the other two in this regard. They were like, "Man, you were really hard on Stoney. Why were you so hard on Stoney?" Is what people were saying about my profile. I think I was fair. But I understand there's a couple of things that we need to discuss, you and we're going to do it in front of everyone. And I will say I was extremely critical, and I think this is the most critical of me, of your administration, and you in regards to this summer and the handling of RPD and community demonstrators. There was just a lot of things that I saw firsthand or on video on social media, because it is COVID. I'm not trying to go outside that much. But that just gave me some real concerns. And I know we're all operating in new water, but let's touch on RPD, your relationship with RPD right now, the relationship between RPD and the community right now, and where do you think we are? Where do you think we are going? Because clearly the summer has not been sustainable in regards to relationships between the police and the community.
Yeah, Mark, I think it's getting better. Is it the way it was before this summer? No. Is it the same as it was this summer? No. It's getting better, and I guess why some who may have reached out to you and had took odds with your profiles, because
Stop,
we've been here's the thing,
look, we're good money. If you take some, you can say if you have a problem with some of it, tell me why I'm wrong. Just tell me why I'm wrong about some.
Here's the thing. When I ever in my life if I ever face crisis, what I do is I get right to work. And when I thought that we had a city that was in crisis, particularly during the summertime, during the unrest, and we heard the outcry for justice for Black and brown people, we recognized that a vast majority of the people who were protesting came and they were peaceful. Some were not from the city of Richmond. They came from all over. Why? Because this is their capital city and this is the biggest stage. Nonetheless, we protected those who chose to demonstrate their First Amendment rights. However, obviously, we do condemn violence of any sort, whether that means destruction of property, setting things on fire, arson, things of that nature. Obviously, we cannot condone anything of the sort. So what I've done, and I've said this many times before, I'm gonna just be blunt with you. I've pissed off the police department or those who support the police department. I've pissed off demonstrators or those who support the demonstrators, because my job is to do what is right with the information I get at that time in real time. And during the summer, you saw me change police chiefs because I saw what I saw, you saw what you saw, and I thought we needed to change. And I began the work of reimagining the way we police and the way we deliver public safety here in the city. I came out and I was told in June. One of my opponents said, Levar Stoney in 2020, me Levar Stoney, October 2020, me Levar Stoney in June 2020. Levar Stoney in June 2020 called for a civilian review board with subpoena power, independent of the police department. I supported back then the Marcus Alert, the creation of the Marcus Alert, so we can actually have a community care team arrive at a situation where someone's experiencing a mental health or behavioral health issue. I did these things back in June.
Real question on that.
During the middle of the unrest.
You're right, but June is still 4 years into your term. So would you say it's fair to say that those issues like a Marcus Alert and a citizen review board were not priorities until the summer happened? And is that, if so, is that just not being aware of it, or is that something that you kind of like could be avoided, so it was avoided up until civil unrest happened?
Well, Mark, let's take
it one at a time.
The voters here.
Okay.
Let's not mislead the voters.
And that's not my intention. I'm just trying to.
First,
yeah.
Okay. So first, you did not have the ability to give civilian review boards any teeth at all in the Commonwealth of Virginia until the special session that just happened.
Okay.
Right? I think maybe 2 localities in the Commonwealth of Virginia had civilian review boards. And you can talk to my friends in Charlottesville, and they will tell you it had no teeth. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to get out there and support something that is just doesn't have any teeth for calling for accountability and transparency. It had no teeth. The one I support is something that actually will allow for the Richmond Police Department to be accountable and transparent. And the good police departments in this country are both of those, accountable and transparent. And the Civilian Review Board will do that. The one now that the General Assembly has been able to agree to. And also, before the pandemic, we had met with the family of Marcus David Peters. We had worked with them on where we want to go with the Marcus Law. I even put dollars into my budget before I had to cut the budget because of the pandemic. You can talk to Richard Behavioral Health Authority about our conversations that we had prior to June.
Let me ask this, because there's still so much to unpack there. But I got two specific questions about just, your relationship with the police chief, the one that's currently now, and just little small things that I think are big deals, but it just seems like aren't always followed through. So, for example, have you had any conversation at all with Chief Smith about RPD officers when they're performing their duties wearing masks? I've seen just tons of videos of RPD not wearing masks. Something that simple. Why? How come that isn't something that's just universally done, or is it now universally done?
It is now universally done because it was brought to my attention that was not the case, and I said, we have to be the model for public health. City government has to be the model for public health. So if any city employee, I get complaints from all over when people are engaging with city employees, whether it's in Department of Public Works, whether it's in Parks and Recreation, whether it's with the Richmond Police Department, you have to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask, particularly when you're indoors or engaging with the public. You have to wear a mask. And when we saw that, I said, Chief, you have to change this.
Do you believe that the Richmond Police Department needs to be retrained? There was some kind of statements by, I don't know if it was Chief Smith, I think it might have been the previous police chief, that when discussing crowd engagement, crowd control, the use of tear gas and rubber bullets, said we haven't really been trained on those types of things enough to handle them in real time. Do you think retraining needs to be taking place? And what do you see? How do you see us moving forward in regards to gaining a working trust system between RPD and the community at large?
Yes, I think that we need retraining or just simply more training, Mark. That's why I'm not a proponent of slashing RPD's budget. I believe that you have to fund the change, you have to fund the reforms. And what I've heard from the task force to reimagining public safety is that these officers need training more than just once when they're in the academy. They need training throughout their time at RPD, just like our teachers get more training through the time, more training and more leadership development during their time as public educators. We should do the same thing for our police officers as well. We have to train our officers not only better on crowd control, right, but also on crowd management. But sorry, I was getting a call from the chief of police. Sorry about that.
He can wait. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
You can wait, Chief. I'm talking to Mark Cheatham right now. I'm talking to Chiefs.
Hey. Go ahead.
But we also need to train them to get past the word no, right? When you arrive on the scene and an individual says, no, I'm not getting out of the car, and they resist, we have to teach our police officers to use this to get beyond no without actually using a weapon. That's what we need to retrain our police officers on. And here's the thing, there are a lot who do that well, but we're not 100% yet. And this will be our tireless approach until 100% of our employees are equipped to do that. Get beyond the word no when they are faced with it during their time out there on the scene.
We're going to move on because I know you're short on time and I'm very respectful of it. One of the other major pushbacks I got from my profile of you, and again, tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong and be as frank as possible with it, because obviously I respect you enough and I want to get the straight answer. I was critical and have been critical of our eviction numbers, right? Richmond's eviction history and kind of record-setting numbers that have been highlighted recently. The big tipping point was a New York Times article, but a lot of people have known we've had an eviction crisis before that. You have taken action. You've taken unprecedented action from an administration. And I wrote in my profile, we do have the eviction diversion program now. Is that my criticism was, we've had this problem for a long time. We've got the eviction diversion program now put in place. Is it too little too late, or is it really making a change? I know there's more that needs to be done. So tell me what's been happening on evictions, and if anybody like myself was criticizing of it, critical of it, was I wrong?
Yeah, you were wrong. And let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because yes, there's a lot of issues that have been happening in Richmond for hundreds of years. However, I only get 4 years as mayor. So when people say, oh my gosh, why were these statues standing up for so long? I've only get 4 years to do my job. When we first were alerted about the New York Times piece, we said, what are we going to do? I sat down with Matthew Desmond, who is the author of Evicted. And he gave me some ideas. Now, you remember this. There are previous mayors before me. I'm not the first mayor in Richmond City's history.
You are not.
Right? I'm the 80th mayor in Richmond City's history. Okay? I'm the 80th mayor in Richmond City's history. And I'm the first to create the eviction diversion program. Not this year in 2020. We said that we would stand up an eviction diversion program a year and a half ago. And we piloted and we put the money behind there, working with Housing Opportunities Made Equal, working with the Central Virginia Legal Aid Society. We did that. No other locality in the Commonwealth of Virginia created a program to combat evictions. And 5 cities in Virginia had an eviction problem, not just Richmond, but we were number 2. So we got to work and we started working on it. And here's the thing, since the eviction diversion program has been stood up, we've seen roughly 450 families that have been saved from the streets. Now, imagine if we went into this pandemic, this economic downturn, this collapse, without an eviction diversion program. Mm-hmm. Imagine we didn't have that. We were ahead of the curve, not behind it.
Is it fair to say with the program, and I do like the program and I support the program, is it fair to say, though, with such a start, when were you made aware of this problem? Was it the New York Times piece, or is that because I mean, going into this, obviously we know about affordable the problems and challenges we have about affordable housing. We know about the challenges we have with our homeless population and certain things. Evictions is something that we heard about during kind of the foreclosure crisis, but it was the New York Times piece was the first time I'd really heard like, whoa, the numbers are that bad. Was that the first time you were aware of it, or were you aware of it before that?
That was the first time I remember they interviewed me for the article. That was the first time when they sat down and interviewed us for the article. That was the first time I ever heard of it. That we had such an egregious problem in the city. And that's when I picked up the phone and called the author of Evicted and said, tell me what you know about Richmond.
Okay. This is what we're going to do.
And trust me, when I called can I say this as
well?
Mark? When I called my friends who are mayors in other localities, or my friends who are elected officials in other localities who are on that list, some of them said, that can't be right. The data's wrong. The data's right. Mm-hmm. Virginia has 5 cities in the top 10.
We're going to have to go to some rapid fire because I know, look, it's 6 days out and you got some things that you got to do. Not alone also run the city as we're talking about.
I've had 2 jobs for the last few months.
So this is going to be rapid fire, and unfortunately, like always, these are not rapid fire questions. But you're going to have to give rapid fire answers as best you can. We always hear the best you can. We always hear about economic, like the need for more economic empowerment, especially amongst our women and minority, Black and brown businesses. That to me, I've been doing this in regards to working in government and politics for a long time now. And I hear it every year. I hear it with every administration. What can we do to make sure that our minority contracting, our women contract, how can we make sure that those numbers are up, even with city government? How do we support those businesses?
So first, what I propose, even when I talk to the Metropolitan Business League, is first that we have to do an equity study, a disparity study here in the city of Richmond, right? We've never done that as a city.
Do we need more studies? That's I always hear, like, I understand.
Well, let me get this. Let me get to step 2.
Yeah, go.
Let me get to step 2. I can't stand up a sheltered market program here in the city of Richmond without that disparity study, right? There's a law that Richmond was at the center of this case, the Croson case that went to the Supreme Court, which Richmond was in the center of back in, I believe, in the 1980s, that states essentially now that we and other cities have to develop a disparity study, an equity study, and then after that, once we see the disparity and it's in black and white, that we can actually then stand up a sheltered market program that essentially does our best to target some of those dollars to Black and brown small businesses, some of those contracts to Black and brown small businesses in the city. But also beyond that, though, Mark, that's a quick. This is rapid fire.
You only got a couple minutes left. You said you've learned lessons from Navy Hill, the Navy Hill project, mostly lessons around transparency and community involvement. We still have, a Coliseum that is not being used and not safe to be used. We still have a project on Boulevard, the old Diamond, if you will, where the baseball team needs a new home, and we all love the Squirrels and we want them to stay. We still have a lot of opportunity for bigger economic development projects. And it seems to be in vogue for everyone to say, no new shiny objects, no big projects, no. And I understand the hesitation because the track record in some of those projects, even before you were in office, especially before you were in office, has been challenging. But I do kind of pause when people say that Richmond can't do big things, because I think we can, and I think we need to moving forward. This Navy Hill project might not have been the move, might not have been the right project. But what can we do to give confidence to people that, hey, Richmond is ready for possibly a new baseball stadium, a new Coliseum? Like, how do we turn the corner on being able to do larger economic development projects, but do them the right way and do them efficiently and do them with transparency and community input. Rapid fire.
You know, one of my yeah, that's the rapid
you
fire.
have 2 seconds.
If I could get a mulligan, a do-over, I would go back to Navy Hill. I would still do Navy Hill, but I would begin the process with more robust community engagement and not depend on the post-corridor plan or any other previous plan or any study of downtown. I just gone to the people and said, we got a dilapidated building called the Richmond Coliseum. What are we going to do about it? I would have done that in the beginning. I still believe the merits of the Navy Hill plan. I think it stands on its own. 10,000 jobs, $300 million invested in Black and brown businesses. We did it because we wanted to insulate ourselves from any economic collapse. And lo and behold, economic collapse here in the city of Richmond. We could have used those 10,000 jobs. Now, moving forward, you're right. There are many opportunities for development. And here's the thing. I was listening to Fareed Zakaria the other day, and I think Richmond is a microcosm of what he said. He said that we have become very adept at blocking actions and saying no. In U.S. government, and I would say in Richmond city government as well. We need to, I don't care what it takes, but in order to redevelop the land that we have today, to bring more dollars in Richmond in our coffers, we need to come together behind something. We know we got to do something. Doing nothing is unacceptable.
You came in with the you came in 2016 and said, hey, look, we got to look top to bottom to City Hall, and we're going to have to change some things at City Hall. And we have, you actually said we have good workers and good people working there. And sometimes the bureaucracy just kind of ties them up, right? One of the things that really quickly I've heard a lot about, because I have heard, one of the things I will give you marks for too, is that a lot of folks will say, oh, Levar Stoney is going to be this helicopter mayor. I don't believe that. I believe that you have focused on the issues of City Hall. You haven't been out of town a whole bunch. I still hear issues about the issues about the permit process and permitting and the time it takes. Are those things that you're still looking at or no?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think you have not seen a mayor as deep in the weeds that I've been over the course of the last 4 years. Not only do I show up everywhere throughout the city, but also I get into deep in the weeds to understand the issues and how we can go about finding solutions. I'm not a micromanager. I bring people to the table and I say, get me a solution to these problems. The permits and inspection is a problem, but I also want to highlight what goes through the permits and inspection. Since March of 2019 to March of 2020, we've seen 1,900 permits that were accepted by the permit office, okay? 1,900. That is plus 600 on the previous year. That's a 46% increase in multifamily permitting in the city of Richmond. Richmond, since 2013, has made up roughly 46% of all the multifamily permitting in the entire region. This department gets a lot of attention, and it's seen a lot of attrition because obviously you see they're drinking from a fire hose. And so not only have we invested in paying these people better wages, better salaries, so we can keep them and they don't go off to Henrico and Chesterfield, we've also invested in technology as well. And we have to continue to do that moving forward if we're going to fix this office.
Last question, because I know you got to go.
Yeah, I had a class waiting on me at George Witt. So
okay, no. If elected, are you committed to serving 4 years without running for another office?
Absolutely. You will not see my name on any ballot in 2021. I'm not running for any office in 2021. I'm committed to ensuring that my city gets through this most turbulent time in our history. And so I'm committed. I'm ready to go.
Close the door for me. We have a lot of committed people in Richmond, a lot of people that are hurting but dedicated and working hard. You're asking them to put trust in you for the next 4 years. Close out the argument for us. Why should people support Levar Stoney in these last 6 days? And maybe 4 years after that.
That's right. I think you need a leader with the experience. I've been through it. We've talked about it during this call right here, Mark. I've got the gray hairs to show for it, and I got the battle wounds to show for as well. I've had the experience, and also I believe I have the temperament to lead this city through a critical time. And I believe that the real test on whether or not this year has been a reckoning of any sort is going to be 2030, and whether or not we close the gaps between Black Richmonders and white Richmonders, between the have and the have-nots. That's been the work of my administration from day one, and I'm ready to complete that work over the course of the next 4 years, and that's why I'm asking for your support.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from Mayor Levar Stoney. I will say we have had a lot of elected officials on this show. We've had a lot of candidates on this show, and the choice now is yours. I have always been appreciative and continue to be to Mayor Stoney for coming on the show. It's he gets the questions directly from you and from me, and you can see his answers and assessed accordingly. It is so critically important that everybody get out and vote. This election is going to be a cornerstone, just a landmark election, probably the most important election of our lifetime. I think that this is the most fascinating race that we have on the ballot, believe it or not. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, Richmond, we see it.